Peace and blessings to whoever is watching this video right now. I'm glad you're able to join me. It's not a coincidence that you're watching this right now. If you are, then God is going to jumpstart your heart into a movement. It has to happen. A shift is coming. And where am I coming with this? So I'm going to go straight right into it. I'm going to play you a video in regards to one of the leaders on the world stage. And this is the South African president, Cyril. And I just look. It's 5 minutes, but it's worth the time to see what's been going on. Peering behind the curtain can't hurt you. You know, sometimes you have to open your eyes into more than what's in front of you, more than what your troubles, your sadness, depression, right? What's your sickness, whatever is happening in front of you right now. Sometimes you have to like look behind the curtain, behind like past your neighborhood, past your city, past your state, and look onto the world stage, because what's happening in other countries are oftentimes replicated in your country, and actions have consequences, right? There's no action without any reaction. So one way or another, it will affect you, and history repeats itself. So let's take a look on what's going on. So I'm going to be playing to you. I'm not all sophisticated yet with the whole technology and stuff like that. So I'm going to be playing for you a 5 minute video. I have it posted in a playlist. If you look it up, you'll see it. It's posted in playlist for Truth Republic. But it's the African president talking about how his country has ended up on the banned list.
Apologetic. And I want to talk about the issue of access to vaccines. We have made a proposal which is supported by more than 100 countries. And what we have said is we want, and this comes back to what the youth were saying as well, they want to know whether they have a continent which will help to develop their skills, where they can thrive. But what do we want? We want to be able to make our own vaccines. And we will deal with the issue of reluctance for our Africans to take vaccines. But we want to make vaccines. We don't just want to fill and finish and package, which is what we are being offered. That we want you to build a capacity to fill, finish, and package, and we will send you the drug substance. And we say no. We want you to relax the intellectual property rights for a while so that we can make the drug substance, because we have the capability. And there are quite a number of countries on the continent that can. And right now, we've got countries like Egypt, Nigeria, Ghana, Senegal, Rwanda, South Africa, and Kenya. Easily, they have the capability, the manufacturing capability, and we are saying we want to be able, we want to go beyond just getting the substance from Europe or wherever, filling and distributing. We want to make the drug substance, because that is where the intellectual property resides. And that is where we want our young people who are epidemiologists, who are scientists, to see that there is a future for them. Then they will not go to Europe, they will not go to America, they will stay here, because they will know that they can work effectively and display all the skills we have. Now, what does the world, the northern part of the world do? They say, no, we know what is good for you. We just want you to do fill and finish, and that's it. And we say, no, we no longer want that. You did that long ago when you colonized us. And when you raped and pillaged our countries, we're saying no now. We have the capability, and we want to make all these things ourselves. Now, quite often we find that there is a bit of paternalism that underpins the relationship between us. I'll give you a very good example. After Omicron was announced, I was due to travel to West Africa. And in traveling in the wake of Omicron, I received calls from the four presidents that I was going to travel to, President Macky Sall, Buhari, Ouattara, as well as Akufo-Addo. And they said, we've heard about this Omicron. Are you still coming? We want you to come. What can we do to help? And I said, President, if you're still relaxed about our coming, we are coming. A plane load of us, together with journalists, we got on the way. Before I left, I also got some calls from Europe. And the calls were so paternalistic. They were saying, hello, President Ramaphosa, we've heard about this Omicron. I am sorry to tell you that we are banning travel to Europe from South Africa and Southern Africa. No discussion, no attempt to hear what our views are. And I'm saying that the relationship needs to be mutually respectful. We need to respect one another. The African presidents respected me as we respect one another. But from Europe, I just got a message of saying, we banned travel, thank you, goodbye, see you next time. That's not the way to conduct a relationship.
Did you like or hate what you heard? Let us know in the comments below, and if you want more candid speeches like this, be sure to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell to catch all our...
Okay. So what you just heard, he used the word as a paternal sentiment, a paternal feeling, a sort of talking down to countries in Africa from Europe. I'm not going to even bring my words into it. I would like to follow up with words from Malcolm X. And it's from the book. Forgive me, it's a little bit enough, but it's from Malcolm X Speaks. And so just listen, because I had to read it out loud, because many of y'all say go get the book and yeah, and you go look for some, summaries, and not really actually do the research on your own. Alright, so this is page 120. Look at the continent of Africa today and see what position it occupies on this earth. And you realize that there's a tussle going on between East and West. It used to be between America and the West and Russia, but they're not tussling with each other anymore. This is from X. None of them are adopting the capitalistic system, because they realize you can't operate a capitalistic system unless you are vulturistic. You have to have someone else's blood to suck to be a capitalist. You show me a capitalist, I'll show you a bloodsucker. He cannot be anything but a bloodsucker if he's going to be a capitalist. He's got to get it from somewhere other than himself, and that's where he gets it, from somewhere or someone other than himself. So when we look at the African continent, when we look at the trouble that's going on between East and West, we find that the nations in Africa are developing socialistic systems to solve their problems. Africa is strategically located geographically between East and West. It's the most valuable piece of property involved in the struggle between East and West. You can't get to the East without going past it. You can't get from the East to West without going past it. It sits right there between all of them. It sits snuggled into a nest between Asia and Europe. It can reach either one. None of the natural resources that are needed in Europe that they get from Asia can get to Europe without becoming either around Africa, over Africa, or in between the Suez Canal, which is sitting at the tip of Africa. She can cut off Europe's bread. She can cut off Europe's bread. She can put Europe to sleep overnight, just like that, because because she's in a position to. The African continent is in a position to do this, but they want you and me to think Africa is a jungle of no value, of no consequence, because they also know that if you knew how valuable it was, you'd realize why they're over there killing our people, and you'd realize that it's not for some kind of humanitarian purpose or reason. Also, Africa as a continent is important because of its tropical climate. It's so heavily vegetated that you can take any action of Africa. You can take any section of Africa and use modern agricultural methods and turn that section alone into the breadbasket for the world. Almost any country over there can feed the whole continent if it only had access to people who had technical know-how to bring into the area modern methods of agriculture. It's rich. A jungle is only a place that heavily a jungle is only a place that heavily vegetated. The soil is so rich and the climate is so good that everything grows, and it doesn't grow in season. It grows all the time. All the time is the season. That means it can grow anything. Produce anything. Added to its richness and its strategic position geographically is the fact of the existence of the Suez Canal, the Strait of Gibraltar. Those two narrow straits can cut off from Europe anything and everything Europe needs. All of the oil that runs in Europe goes through the Suez Canal, up the Mediterranean Sea to places like Greece and Italy and southern Spain and France, and along through there, or through the Strait of Gibraltar and around on into England. And they need it. They need access through the Suez. When Nasser took over the Suez, they almost died in Europe. It scared them to death. Why? Because Egypt is in Africa. In fact, Egypt is in both Africa and Asia. Another reason the continent is so important is because of its gold. It has some of the largest deposits of gold on earth and diamonds. Not only the diamonds you put on your finger and in your ear, but industrial diamonds. Diamonds are needed to make machines that can't function or can't run unless they have these diamonds. These industrial diamonds play a major role in the entire industrialization of the European nations, and without these diamonds, their industry would fall. You and I usually know of diamonds for rings because those are the only diamonds we get close to, or the only diamonds within our line of thinking. We don't think in terms of diamonds for other uses, or baseball diamonds. Some of us only get that far. Not only diamonds, but also cobalt. Cobalt is one of the most valuable minerals on this earth today, and I think Africa is one of the only places where it's found. They use it in cancer treatment, plus they use it in this nuclear field that you've heard so much about. Cobalt and uranium, the largest deposits, are right there on the African continent. And this is what the man is after. The man is after keeping you over here worrying about a cup of coffee while he's over there in your motherland taking control over minerals that have so much value they make the world go round. While you and I are still walking around here, yes, trying to drink some coffee with a cracker. It's one of the largest sources of iron and bauxite and lumber and even oil, and Western industry needs all these minerals in order to survive. All of these natural minerals are needed by the Western industrialists in order for their country to keep running at the clip that it's been used to. Another excerpt. Being the gateway to Southwest Africa, Southern Rhodesia, Swaziland, and South Africa, the Congo is a country on the African continent which is so strategically located geographically that if it were to fall into the hands of a real dyed-eyed African nationalist, he could then make it possible for African soldiers to train in the Congo for the purpose of invading Angola. When they invade Angola, that means Angola must fall because there are more Africans than there are Portuguese, and they just couldn't control Angola any longer. And if Congo fell into good hands other than Tshombe, then it would mean that Angola would fall, Southern Rhodesia would fall, Southwest Africa would fall, and South Africa would fall. And that's the only way they would fall. When these countries fall, it would mean that the source of raw material, natural resources, some of the richest mineral deposits on Earth, would then be taken away from the European economy. And without free access to this, the economy of Europe wouldn't be worth 2 cents. Another excerpt, this is on page 127 now. As these African nations get in a position to increase their own power and to industrialize, what does it mean? It means that where they now are a market for American goods and America's finished products, and a market for European finished products, when they're able to finish their own products, they will be able to get their products cheaper because they're putting their own raw materials into the finished products. Let me say this again. It means that where they now are a market for American goods and America's finished products, and a market for European finished products, when they're able to finish their own products, they will be able to get their products cheaper because they're putting their own raw materials into the finished products. Now the raw materials are taken from Africa, shipped all the way to Europe, used to feed the machines of the Europeans and make jobs for them, and then turned around and sold back to the Africans as finished products. But when the African nations become industrialized, they can take their own products and stick them in the machines and finish them into whatever they want. They can live cheaper. Then they can live cheaper. The whole system will be a system with a high standard of living, but a cheaper standard of living. This standard of living automatically will threaten the standard of living in Europe because it will cut off the European market. European factories can't produce unless they have some place to market the products. American factories can't produce unless she has some place to market her products. It is for this reason that the European nations in the past have kept nations in Latin America and in Africa and in Asia from becoming industrial powers. They keep the machinery and the ability to produce and manufacture limited to Europe and limited to America. Then this puts America and the Europeans in a position to control the economy of all other nations and keep them living at a low standard. These people are beginning to see that. The Africans see it, the Latin Americans see it, the Asians see it. So when you hear them talking about freedom, they're not talking about a cup of coffee with a cracker. No, they're talking about getting in a position to feed themselves and clothe themselves and make these other things that, when you have them, make life worth living. So this is the way you and I have to understand the world revolution that's taking place right now. When you understand the motive behind the world revolution, the drive behind the African and the drive behind the Asian, then you get some of that drive yourself. You'll be driving for real. The man downtown knows the difference between when you're driving for real and when you're driving not for real. As long as you keep asking about coffee, he doesn't have to worry about you. He can send you to Brazil. So these dams being set up over there in different parts of the continent are putting African nations in a position to have more power, to become more industrial, and also to be self-sustained and self-sufficient. And he goes on to say, in line with that is, in the past, it was the World Bank, controlled again by Europeans and from Europe, that subsidized most of the effort that was being made by African nations and Asian nations to develop underdeveloped areas. But the African nations are now getting together and forming their own bank, the African Bank. Politically, Africa as a continent and the African people as a people have the largest representation of any continent in the United Nations. Politically, the Africans are in a more strategic position and in a stronger position whenever a conference is taking place at the international level. Today, power is international. Real power is international. Today, real power is not local. The only kind of power that can help you and me is international power, not local power. Any power that's local, if it's real power, is only a reflection of or a part of that international power. If you think you've got some power and it isn't in some way tied into the international thing, brother, don't get too far out on them. If your power base is only here, you can forget it. You can't build a power base here. You have to have a power base among brothers and sisters. You have to have your power base among people who have something in common with you. They have to have some kind of cultural identity, or there has to be some relationship between you and your power base. When you build a power base in this country, you're building it where you aren't in any way related to what you build it on. No. You have to have that base somewhere else. You can work here, but you'd better put your base somewhere else. Don't put it in this man's land. Any kind of organization that is based here can't be an effective organization. Anything you've got going on for you, if the base is here, is not going to be effective. Your and my base must be at home, and this is not at home. To show you the power of the block and the results that I've gotten, this goes on, I'm skipping to passages. To show you the power that of the block and the results that they've gotten and how well the Europeans know it. On the African continent, when I was there, one thing I noticed was the 24-hour a day effort being made in East Africa to turn the African against the Asian, and to turn the African against the Asian, and in West Africa to turn the African against the Arab, and in parts of Africa where there are no Asians or Arabs to turn the Muslim African against the Christian African. When you go over there and study this thing, you can see that it is not something that's indigenous. It's not a divisive situation that's indigenous to the African himself. But somehow, someone realizes that the power of the oppressed black, brown, red, and yellow people began at the Bandung Conference, which was a coalition between the Arab and the Asian, and African, and how much pressure they've been able to put on the oppressor since then. So very shrewdly, they have moved in. Now, when you travel on the continent, you see the African in East Africa is being sicked on the Asian. There's a division taking place. And in West Africa, he's being sicked on the Arab. There's a division taking place. And where the oppressor, this indigenous oppressor, diabolically ingenious, and where the oppressor, this ingenious oppressor, diabolically ingenious, where he hasn't found an Asian to sick the African on, or an Arab to sick the African on, he uses the Muslim African against a Christian African, or the one that believes in religion against the one that doesn't believe in religion. But the main thing he's doing is causing this division, to in some way keep the African, the Arab, and the Asian from beating up on him. Okay. And lastly, yes, I'm done now. When you start thinking, this is on page 168, when you start thinking for yourselves, you frighten them. And they try and block your when you start thinking for yourselves, you frighten them. And they try and block your getting to the public, for the fear that if the public listens to you, then the public won't listen to them anymore. Now, and he goes on to ask, what effect does Africa have on us and how does it affect you? Okay. there's a shift coming. The Lord inspired me to go into all of this tonight. The Lord has always been my inspiration and has always talked to me and communicated with me. And He's saying there is a shift coming. Nobody on this earth has that right to be on top and calling other African nations and in a sense of sort of mommy and daddy are telling you this is what's going to happen. No right. Because you see it, I'm speaking right now, it sounds like, oh, just international, this happened, just one issue internationally. But it's not one issue internationally. It's what's been happening. It's shifting in different ways. It's looking in different formats, but it's been happening. This South African president is speaking candidly and truthfully and saying this would happen to us. And it's not small. I really ask you to open up your way of thinking and broaden it up and really start seeing things on the international level, like Michael Lex was saying. Not that I agree with the whole social agenda. There's a whole agenda going on right now, the socialist agenda that I'm not for, but I'm also not for, as he called it, a bloodsucker in terms of you sucking off I should say you feeding like a leech. There it is. You're feeding off Africa, you're feeding off Latin America, you're feeding off other countries and destabilizing those countries to make sure that they become third world countries and underdeveloped. I'm not for that. Who can be for that? And then turn back and supply them with their own supply or their own product. That's like somebody's on top and somebody's down low. It just keeps that system going. And the way he's speaking right now, it's like mommy and daddy gave you the phone call and you better act right. Act right, act your part, play your role, know your position, stay in it. And that's for all people of a certain groups to understand. As X said it, he's like, they're putting you, those who are in power are putting you, working against you to devise, to create division, and to not only create division, but they facilitate you doing the job for them. Like, if they're not there to make a phone call, to do this, to actually you see them on the ground, well then they'll make you go against your fellow tribe, your fellow neighbor for whatever agenda they need fulfilled. So there is a shift coming. There is a coming together where those who used to be on top, you're not on top anymore. The children of God, we're on top. That's what's coming. God bless you, and thank you for watching this video.